All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and get started. Obviously, this is our first hybrid session, and so it's great to see folks that are here. What you see on the screen is this is the main camera with Barbara standing behind me, right there. And so we have the presentation set up here. I have my phone set up on a tripod. It's taking a picture of the room, so that just gives you an idea of who's in the room and how things are going. There is a YouTube that is streaming, and later on I'll take a look at that and see what else we can do and what improvements we can make. One of the things that's going to be challenging is for those of you online to be able to hear the conversations in the auditorium can be a challenge. And so I may think of some way to be able to, maybe if I had my phone out there with a microphone on or something to be able to catch the audio, but that'll be a challenge. So we're going to go ahead and get started. And again, thank you guys for being here tonight and welcome. We're going to start off with our speaker for tonight. And to do that, pass it on to Barbara.
Hello, my name is Barbara Pete, and I'm the second vice president of the chapter, which is really the programming chair. And tonight we're very lucky to have Rolando Garza. He's the archaeologist and chief of resource management at Palo Alto Battlefield National Historical Park. After receiving a BA in anthropology from the University of Texas in 1990, he worked on various cultural resource management projects throughout Texas and New Mexico. And in 1998, he joined the National Park Service at the Southeast Architectural Center, gaining invaluable experience investigating battlefields from the American Revolution, War of 1812, and the U.S. Civil War. Then he returned to his hometown of Brownsville, Texas in 2001 to work at a recently established national park, Palo Alto. He's directed a number of archaeological investigations at Palo Alto Battlefield, as well as the associated Mexican War sites of Resaca de la Palma and the original earthworks at Fort Brown. He's also participated in archaeological investigations on the nearby Civil War era Palmito Ranch Battlefield National Historic Landmark. He's an active steward of the archaeological resources in Cameron County and serves on Brownsville's Historic Preservation Design and Review Board and on the Brownsville Historical Association Board of Directors. And he's a great friend of the Master Naturalists, and thank you for being here, Rolando.
No problem, my pleasure. My pleasure. I am an archaeologist, but tonight I'm going to talk about natural resource management at Palo Alto Battlefield National Historical Park. If you want to hear about the archaeology we've done here in Cameron County on the Mexican War and the Civil War sites, I'm giving a presentation at the park at 10 o'clock this coming Saturday morning. I believe Robert's going to record it also and put it on your YouTube channel, so that'll be available that way too. But I really enjoy working with the Texas Master Naturalists and enjoying having y'all out at the park, helping me out managing the resources. So, this is, right now we have two park units. It's Palo Alto Battlefield up there. It's a 3,400 acre square boundary. We don't own all of it yet. And then we have the second battle, the battle that took place, Palo Alto took place on May 8th, 1846, the afternoon. And then the following afternoon, the battle, Palo Alto was an artillery duel. So to negate the effects of the American artillery, neither side gave up the field of battle, but the Mexican army fared a lot worse. So to negate the effects of the American artillery, they decided to move down before dawn, about 6 miles down the road to the place where the road crossed the abandoned river channel of Resaca de la Palma, as we know it now, and use the dense vegetation and natural ravine to kind of take care of the effects or to minimize the effects of the artillery. It was a good plan because Resaca de la Palma was could be characterized as hand-to-hand combat. It was a more even fight. The only problem is about half of the Mexican troops did not get involved with the battle because of the thick brush, thick vegetation. And so they held their positions while the Americans concentrated on the western flank and were able to penetrate the line and capture the Mexican camp at about 2 hours of intense fighting. and relieving the siege at Fort Brown, which had been under siege from since May the 3rd. So this is a 6-day siege. Fort Brown, there are still some standing ruins associated with the 1846 earthen fortification that General Zachary Taylor had his troops. He came down here with half of the standing army, which was only about 5,000 troops back in 1846. There's still standing ruins. Right now, our Congressman Philemon Vela has legislation out there to bring that into a unit of the park. But that, I think, is all the history I'm going to talk about. Let's talk about Palo Alto Battlefield. You see, it's a 3,400-acre boundary. It's gonna be so much more important to the ecosystem as time goes by, and they continue to develop this delta area and the lowland. We continue to get encroached. It's funny, when I came back here in 96 and 97, I was an SAA intern. The intersection at 511 and 1847 was still blinking lights and two-way highways. And just in that 20 years, or wherever we are, 20 some odd years, we got this mega highway 550, this mega toll road 550 with horrible luminaires that stand 150 feet above of the ground, which I know I'm preaching to the choir in this group, but understand what happens to wildlife and the ecosystem when you kill the night skies and the lightning, bringing all this artificial light into the ecosystem, what it does to the balance we have and the nocturnal species that live. Anyway, so that's it. We are largely unchanged because we're in bad land, bad soil. We're in coastal prairie. So all our vegetation, we have a lot of clays. It's just not really good for development. It was marginal for livestock grazing and not good for crop cultivation, even though there were attempts out there to do it. Let me get back. So natural resources. I'm an archaeologist. I came in 2006. I got my master's degree from UT Brownsville. I jumped into the chief of resource management, integrated resource management. I knew about natural resources because they were important to archaeology and archaeological science. We had to know what resources they were exploiting. So I kind of had a base knowledge, but I never managed resources. But thanks to the Gulf Coast Inventory and Monitoring Networks, which was set up around the turn of the millennium, the National Park Service decided we need to help all the parks, big parks and small parks. Small parks really benefit from this, to develop a network of inventory and monitoring so we can devise long-range monitoring protocols specific to each park so you can measure the health. They call them vital signs, measure the health of the ecosystem. So hopefully you get some red flags coming up, and in a way you look, hey, something's going wrong. Maybe we can make some management adjustments to continue to help. Because in all, it's an organic act. We need to maintain the natural ecosystems of each region the park is from. So that's one thing we're part of. Even though we're all about the war, the U.S. Mexican war and the battlefields, our underlying mission with the National Park Service is maintaining a healthy native ecosystem, which is a challenge, as I come to find out. It really is. Just because all the invasive species that come in, from grass to nilgai, it is very challenging. So we're on the network of parks. These are the parks from Gulf Islands all the way to Brownsville. There are 8 parks in it. And it was not only them coming to do work, these protocols, but it's working with the other resource managers and natural resource people in the other park that I took a lot of guidance from, mentors. In the summer of 2020, I received the John Carter Award for Excellence in NPS Archaeology. I couldn't have done it. I'm not an island. I had to have mentors. And these guys, the other resource managers, natural resource are mentors. They taught me so much. And you do it through mentors and partners. I have grown and been able to rely heavily on local fish and wildlife as our sister agency big, and people like Texas Natural Naturalists, Max Ponds from the Nature Conservancy, Texas Parks and Wildlife, the people at Recycle Palma have really helped me to become a natural resource manager. Anyway, one of the first protocols that was developed, it's been refined and finally published, is the Texas Tortoise Monitoring Protocol. They want to look at amphibians and reptiles. It's key indicators, quick indicators of the health of the ecosystem. I wanted to do rattlesnakes, but of course that was shot down, but Texas tortoise is pretty cool. We have over 300 marked individuals out there. And the way we mark it is you drill holes in the scoots. And I'm sorry, I do not have a picture. I just realized that I should have added a picture of how we mark the scoots. But we can mark up to 1,000, I think 100,000 tortoises. You do like 1 through 10 on one side, the back, 10 through the 70s, 100 through 1,000, 1,000 through 10,000 or so. But it's pretty cool. But here's where they are. And of course, when we do this, I get to see a lot of rattlesnakes because they occupy the same terrain, the same habitat. This is a lot of different prepared. You got to crawl through the brush. It's fun. You always come out scratched. I guarantee you, if you don't come out scratched, you're not participating. You're just standing there wasting people's time, I guess. Okay, there. You see those little drill holes in there in the scoops? Right up there. This would be 81 right there based on these are 7 and I'm sorry 7 and 2 right there 91 I'm sorry. Anyway, so that's how they mark them. We have over 300 marked individuals. We have a healthy population based on the mark and we capture, and we definitely do have a lot of we don't mark when they're too small. We can't mark. We don't mark because 1, it wouldn't stay, and 2, and it doesn't hurt them at all. It's like putting a shoe on a horse or clipping your nails. It's a keratin material, and it doesn't hurt. But when they're that small, they're growing so quick, you wouldn't do it. Actually, when they're that small, it's kind of weird because you don't want to touch it too hard because all their little scoots kind of move a little bit. They're very fluid, and that's when they're most vulnerable to predators. That small. Through this market recapture protocol, we're able to find new movement over the years. We started this in 2008, but we've also had a couple of radio telemetry projects, one from the Gulf Coast Network, and then 2, we have a second one from Texas State University. A researcher out of Texas State is doing a telemetry program where they can find the tortoises and they have GPS. So just not, we don't have their movements from whenever we find them again, which could be a couple of years. Now we have movements on a daily basis of where they're going and how they move. We did do a data unveiling of this, inviting all the local experts, including Judd and Rose, who wrote the book. I might be saying that wrong. I'm one of them. Who wrote the book back and did the preliminary tortoise work over there near the coast back in the 80s or so. They're so wild. They came to that along with Fish and Wildlife, Texas Parks and Wildlife. And so we're out and we're going to do it again once COVID ends. We'll probably have another, and it'll be open to the public. Depending on how much interest we get will depend on what venue we choose to do that. Oh, this is a picture in January. This is how buried they get. They don't have burrows like the gopher tortoise or the desert tortoise. Gopher tortoise in the east or the desert tortoise in the southwest. But they somehow managed to work their way down into it so they can survive the freezes like that. That was in the January. That was several years back, though. We do cover board monitoring. In the covers out there, document for it's a Texas spiny lizard, Galapagos. I'm not a biologist, so I don't know my good scientific names. I can be corrected. That is a Oaxacan racer. That is Ruthvens, I believe. I could be wrong, or it could be what's the other one that kind of looks like Ruthvens? Anybody here? Not that's to do with the nose. Patch nose. I think it's patch nose. We're working with, this is my volunteer, Gus Renfro, and Dr. Alejandro Fierro from the university, who's been a big partner in a lot of things. I still work with him. He used to be in charge of the cover board. We're trying to get it up, but that kind of protocol has died out. But we still do it just to get information for the park. But the Gulf Coast Inventory Monitoring Network no longer supports it or funds that the cover board pine. Of course, we got a nice population of fixed horn lizards, and for a while there, we did field trips out at the park. We saw them like 3 years in a row, so that was kind of cool. So maybe next time when we go out to the park, we'll see them, although not in our recyclable ball unit. We also do bird monitoring in these protocols. That's Ken Pruitt, professor from RGVCTMN Preserve. That's of course mockingbird on a battlefield trail. It's a white-tailed kite or black-shouldered kite, whatever you prefer. That is a white-tailed hawk. We just had an A&M researcher do a study on the nest, the habitats of the nest. She had a camera up there, just watching the fledge till they fledge, taking pictures, looking at that. So it was cool. I don't have videos yet. I do have a sample video of one of the parents coming and feeding the chicks and all that. Pretty cool. So that's the other thing about the park. We're open to volunteer help. We're also open to researchers of any kind, as long as it's got to pass to get a permit, pass through our regional office and make sure no animals are hurt or anything like that. But we definitely open to research. Indigo bunting, I believe I could be wrong. That's indigo bunting because a blue grosbeak has a yellow beak, right? And the last protocol, which just started up, is vegetation monitoring. So we got these plots in there. I'm not as familiar with this because we just started like in 2019 laying out these grids. This is kind of what it looks like in there. They're measuring, they want to measure invasive species, native species, the change, what's happening, what is making this change to kind of take a sense in the habitat. These are Bobby and Jane from the Gulf Coast Network. They do all that. They have their system there where it goes down to how much you record from predominant to that 1 meter grid where they record every species in that grid. And like I said, it's all about detecting change and the health of the ecosystem. So if something's happening, we can try and stop. If something bad is happening to the ecosystem, we can try and get control of it through management efforts and bring it back to its natural state and try and maintain a natural state. What is the natural state? It's always changing, but we know one thing, it doesn't involve invasive species, right? That's the hard, our grasses are the hardest thing. But naturally, we're trying to do what I'm about to get into is we are trying to freeze to one particular natural state in time, which is the Battle of Palo Alto, 1846, through vegetation management techniques. Like I said, this is Palo Alto. For the native ecosystem and habitat for animals, it's going to be important, especially as all this gets developed. But like I said, the reason it wasn't developed because it's the edge of this large coastal prairie, estuary thing that you get, just not suitable for development. That's it. So we're trying to get it back to this. Those of you who have been out to Palo Alto, what is wrong with this picture today? How does this not fit in the picture today? Well, aside from the mountains, okay, yeah, I forgot. I don't know. The artist had issues with the world just falling flat off the canvas, which it does down here, right? You can see forever. We've been consulting parties like with the LNGs and SpaceX, and we talked about the viewsheds for the battlefield, protecting the viewsheds of the battlefield. Really, things can be seen 20 miles away easily just because we're so flat. But anyway, open prairie. We have a lot more trees on the prairie in the whole area. There was a lot less trees back in the 19th century. A good part of it was the changes in hydrology, the changes in the water. The Delta used to flood a lot more. Beginning in, these are some maps. There are some trees on the periphery. It was a wide open prairie. But you look at the period map. There's this huge ridge over there on this side, right up there. A lot of people confuse that with Loma Alta. That's why our National Historic Landmark and our state side boundary go all the way out to Old Portismo. But it was an open prairie. I guess, yeah, there are trees around, but there's so less trees out in the prairie now. It's a change from what it is today. You see there's scars, it changes, there's development out there. Like I said, the overall change to the system. The biggest change is, I can't emphasize this enough, was the changes to the hydrology. First, around 1912, they started the big network of the floodway, the drainage ditches, which includes a big floodway that goes from Mercedes all the way out into Willacy County or wherever it goes, and all the drainage system, which has only been expanded upon during the 20th century. And then you put that with the damming of the Rio Grande River. The Rio Grande Delta does not flood like it used to. And people think flood is, it's supposed to flood. It's a delta. We're supposed to flood. The river's supposed to move. It's supposed to occupy new channels, old channels, and abandoned. That's the way. It's a fluid system, but we've tried to stop it, and we've, so that's why we get one woody vegetation coming onto the prairie, but we also get flooding in residential areas because it's a delta. It's a natural delta. I'm sorry. Well, not that. So anyway, so this is the 1930 map. You can see traces of the historic road coming out down there. You see that little scratch on the thing on this side of the 39? That's part of the old road, and that was an inn. From 1850 to 1853, there was a thing called the Palo Alto Inn out there, and it offered come hunt souvenirs of the battle and all that. That was a road that connected Matamoros to the fishing village of Tortoise beginning of the 20th century. Eventually, they would abandon this road in 1853 and move it to the modern day old Tortoise road. You see, not a lot of that. That's kind of cool. It would have been nice if we would have bought the property back in 1939. We got 1950. We got a big pipeline coming through there. Still not a lot of scars. There's some stuff going on over here on this side, but it's still pretty much untouched. Then we get to 62. We get fence lines. The area gets subdivided. Get vegetation clearing going on. And then we get a lot of livestock tanks are being dug into the ground. Usually they're in resaca beds. There's only one that is not in a resaca bed or lake feature pond. But you can see them spotted around there. I would push something I'm afraid I won't do it for. Oh, yeah. See, like here, there's a tank there. There's a tank there. There's a tank. Right there, 2 tanks. Right there, that's a tank in the pond. This is the drinking hole that the American Army stopped to put their wagon train over here at. But you're seeing a lot more scars come onto the land. Then you get to the 70s, you got these features coming in. You got a lot of vegetation clearing here. Look, you got crop cultivation going on here. Just clearing, just a lot. Then 89, this is kind of a weird picture, so it just sees the continual scar. This is it. One landowner did a lot of clearing. He actually planted there. He would plow this up. He planted cotton for a while, and it was not doing good. So he just plowed it and leave it unplanted, which caused all the minerals to leach up to the surface, kind of even making it even a worse condition. But somehow, prickly pear and even saltier condition, prickly pear and the exotic blue stem grasses are fine in that. Well, you just see the amount of scars going in here. And the same landowner who did that clear cut off of this area up here, which is nice. It was the upland. This would have been natural wood. This would have been natural. The wood would have come out. They talked about the U.S. Army coming in out of the brush into the open prairie where they too far. Now we have this, so we got to deal with it. Our first thing was to restore the resaca out there. So we did a resaca restoration project. A lot of our project is done by project funding. We got to put in project requests. I usually do it with partners. And we did this with Colorado State University and our hydrologists out of the Washington office to remove these tanks and these stuff. In the 50s, during a big drought, they put tanks on the inside of the ditch, on the inside of the resaca bed. You can still see it as you go over here, but we removed them all here. We also did geo-arc survey, so we can see where the spoil was deposited and how they were dug. So we know we're doing it right. And then we found out that that channel was abandoned from a flow stream about 500 years ago. This is what one of the tanks look like. The one on the side. This is actually tank. This is the berm. This is the recycle edge. This is the recycle edge going that way. This is the tank in here. This is the berm, and this is where the water was held. This is like a dike that was the road that carried through. We came in, and I forgot what year this was, about 2018 or something like that. Came in, we pushed the spoil mounds, the artificial levees, pushed them in, filled in the ditches, to create more of a natural recycle, like it is. Just a general sheepfold, so the prairie can act like it was, a floodplain lake, just flow into the basin, the natural basin of the recycle bed. There. Oh, yes, we have so much water out there. I was thinking the next picture was gonna be a picture after the rain of that flow, but I guess I didn't put that in, that's from the presentation. But then, okay, so we got the recycle, and it's nice, it's going good, but you have this. Woody vegetation encroaching upon the historic. Look how much, that's our overlook on the battlefield. We have that when it should look like this. This is on that private in-holding inside the parking lot. It's because nobody ever plowed it up, nobody ever removed the Spartina grass. This has always been characterized through the first-hand accounts of battle, that and just the area as a coastal prairie dominated by Spartina Gulf cord grass. That's what this is. So in 2016, we partnered with Fish and Wildlife, the Coastal Program, and we were going to mechanically remove the woody vegetation from these. And I chose these because that's where good stance of Spartina was, because the plan is we want to use fire to do it. But unfortunately, and the reason Fish and Wildlife is doing it is for habitat for the alpha mottle falcon, which we do have a breeding pair. We have a long breeding pair, which is monitored by the Urban Fund out on the eastern portion of the park. Well, we got lucky and we hired this equipment. A contractor out of Georgia was down here working for Fish and Wildlife. And because it was on tracks, moving, it doesn't need little ground disturbance. But the main thing was on wheels and not tracks. On wheels, we could rapidly move around the battlefield. And we were able to get that whole area that I had. We just didn't get these little purple patches. We got that whole area inside. Of course, you got to stop at that green line because that's a property line. Over here, where those long lines here, this is the property line. This is a private in-holding still. Although we're working with the Texas Conservation Fund to acquire it. By the way, I took that picture of the falcon. Somebody asked me to take a picture of the nesting structure, and they were nesting nearby, and they're trying to get me out of there. But it's fast, it's good, it was a perfect tool. But we had places that looked like this, turned into that. Places look like that, turned into that. Huge difference. What do you think happened that same year? Right on that area, looking that way, the San Ramon wind farm came up. It is. You can see that easily from the park. But anyway, it's out of our control. We do our best to protect our resources from external threats, but that's all we can do is our best, because we ended up losing most of those fights, like the SpaceX and the LNGs and all that. But that's enough of that. So then we have a Prairie Fire. Well, what happens the next spring? The woody vegetation comes right back up. We use crew. This is where I'm working with AmeriCorps. Actually, this is Texas Conservation Corps. The two people in blue shorts are AmeriCorps from Laguna Atascosa, came over to help me train our crew. And basal bark treatments, we come spray the bottom. It's a high concentrate of garland floor with a basal bark oil, and then just spray the bottom up to about your knee all around. Make sure you get all around. It's very effective killing trees, systematically comb the area. We also are reintroducing Spartina Gulf cordgrass in the area where it was removed. This was also through the partnership with Colorado State University, because we need that, because it's a good for fire, because it grows. I don't know if y'all familiar with it. It grows, it clumps, it dries out. There's a lot of dead material. It carries a good hot fire, and of course the grass responds well to it. but it will kill the prickly pear and the woody vegetation, which shouldn't be there. And we have a little nursery set up on. Some of y'all have helped me kind of clean this up from time to time, and I might still need assistance. That partnership is gone, but we still need, I need to figure out a way to keep putting at least 10,000 plugs of grass every year out on the prairie. This is just some of the planting things. This is all stuff we planted. There was no spartina grass there. You kind of see it in there. We go out and we do a tour of the battlefield sometime, maybe early fall or whenever. I'll show you these areas out there. But like I said, fire is the key tool that we need to bring. And that's at Palo Alto Battlefield. We're using vegetation management techniques, natural resource, to restore our cultural landscape and maintain our cultural landscape at the park. That's going to be a never-ending job because the hydrology's changed. We can't just fix it and let it go. We got to keep managing it. But hopefully, with fire, we can get to a year where we get to a time where we don't just have to burn once every 5 years, and it's good. We don't have to put any more herbicide. We don't have to plant any more grass. That's a long way from now. Let's go to our Resaca de la Palma unit. You can see it's in town. It's in the middle of Brownsville, in North Brownsville. This is all that remains of the battlefield. Like I said, the Mexican soldiers were lined up from here all the way here. The road came in from here going, and it's still forward there. But the American Army concentrated on this. So these Mexican soldiers did not see any action here. We found one musket ball here when we did archaeology, but the heat of the battle took place over in here. And in 67, a mass burial of Mexican soldiers was found right there. And this is the Brazilian pepper tree project, which is the first thing I want y'all to help. I'm going to need help on. This was infested with Brazilian pepper tree project. I put this picture in to show the difference. This is it restored. This is a 2020 aerial photograph. You see the difference in the vegetation signature. This is all native brush that we put in. A lot of Retama came in on its own, but it's kind of cool. We were just out there with the Corps of Engineers and looking at the plants. It's good. We still got to work. We'll never stop killing Brazilian pepper out there. Although U.S. Corps of Engineers wants to introduce a biocontrol, which is a thrip, which is a little insect that they could test it in Florida with USDA APHIS. And to bring in, I'm not sure if we'll be able to use it at the park or not. That's still a decision to be made. But biocontrols can always be hazardous, I guess. Let's get out of control. But it's an option that could really help lighten our load if it does work the way it's supposed to. Anyway, so I work with, this is an American conservation group coming in. You can see the thick. I know I have to have a picture of the thick. This is all Brazilian pepper with one low Retama tree coming out there. It's crazy heavy. It's trying to grow. I don't know. Are all of y'all familiar with Brazilian pepper or not really? It's a horrible invasive plant that strangles out the native species. This picture is kind of dark. But we came in, we did this. It was kind of a rainy, overcast day. We planted trees that we got little 6-inch seedlings that we do. That we made it to a certain point that year. Look, okay, that's a good example. You see that mesquite tree right there? It's coming out there on that, and then it crawled along the out trying to survive. All this was covered with Brazilian pepper. That's how bad it is. And those are the tree protectors we had. So when we come out there, I want to clear out all the tree protectors, kind of look at, we got some Brazilian pepper to kill, and just kind of straight out. We might thin back some of the Retama that came in on its own that's very thick. And if y'all ever want a Retama patch, and why we want to thin it out a little bit, yeah, it's hard to walk through it. Like I said, you got to get scratched. So the one thing we did, I came back with the contractor for our invasive plant management team, and we decided to spread the mulch out, the mulch from the Brazil. The first year, I made the mistake of hauling it to the dump, which one was not the safest thing for an ace crew to be doing, but two, it took a lot of time to remove all the debris. We thought it's an invasive debris, but actually the mulch, when we spread the mulch, there was a lot less of Brazilian pepper trees coming up on their own through the roots and all that, or through the berries. It really worked. But right now, Ratama came up through that mulch really good. Spread it around. Then we have, this is, I don't know if y'all recognize any of your guys. It's actually part Texas Natural Actress and part UG RGB, restoration people. Oh, it was probably the coldest day. Y'all know her, Eileen? It was cold. It was a miserable day out there. We picked the wettest and coldest day that we could. But what can you do when you plan a day out a month in advance or so, right? Well, we planted. We've done good. It's been very successful. Some trees have died, but lots survived. We even have a couple of cypress out there. And we also have a good milkweed comes in the center out there. I had two of your former people, I know they're still members, Carla and Carlos were coming out. We collected a lot of milk seed. We ended up donating the seed to Dr. Klein from the university where they're planting a native garden out there at UT RGV, the Broward campus. That's what I got for natural resource management. I really look forward to working at the battlefield with y'all, touring, and I guess we have time for a couple of questions if they're in. Okay, at Palo Alto, which are dry, the city, we're talking about Palma, the city maintains that. That was overflowed into our project here. At Palo Alto, there's a lot of mention. If you drive down 1847 going to Los Fresnos, you can see the Resaca out coming in. It's so cool. Of course, there's vegetation on top, but you can see the water in there. So almost all of our Resaca have standing water in it right now. I'm not sure how long that will last. In some places, it will last longer than others. The other treat that comes with this is mosquitoes come in hard. So, we aren't necessarily going to be planning. I want to do more manicure, removing all the protective sleeves. It's more of a cleanup. Taking out the protective sleeves, kind of taking an assessment of the success, what survived, what are the planting materials inside, kill the new sprouts of Brazilian pepper trees, and possibly, I'm not 100% sure I want to do this, but I might a little bit thin out some of the Ratama trees. I would like to do that the sooner the better. Because the plant, okay, we won't plant until October or so. Y'all, some of y'all helped me plant along where they built a new hike bike extension on 1847, and the contractors destroyed too much vegetation. Y'all came out and helped me plant up there. They're all doing very good. I don't know, but they're very fast growing compared to a lot of the other native trees. So the ones we got, they've been there 3 years. They're definitely 15 foot, but slender, mainly one stalk. They don't have that big overhead canopy. So, but they're at least 15 feet tall now. Okay, it's permanent until they remove the infrastructures of the dams. This is all cultural activities. It's the dams on the Rio Grande River, which get seasonal flooding, and then the drainage ditches, which was meant to alleviate the flooding from hurricanes. Now, there was a really bad hurricane in 1898 where for months it stayed. That's why I think Hidalgo, Willacy, and Cameron County went in together to do this region-wide drainage project. But yeah, until they remove the dams on the river and they stop all these drainage ditches, the Delta won't flood like it will. Yeah, no. Yeah. Well, it's bad enough to see like last week's rain, people walking around with a foot of water in their house, which is sad. But part of that is people are going to kill me for saying this. Is poor planning, poor zoning, no zoning enforcement, developing in low areas that should not be developed on. Okay, I won't say anymore. I'm getting close to the end. Yeah. The hike bike trail is going to have little impact, although some of it gets underwater and cheated, which isn't great. We're trying to work with that. It was a city contract. I'm not trying to pass the buck, but it was a partnership with the city contract, and the city had their designers and engineer built it. But it's good. I fully support the hike bike trail system, the Kata trail system, because it's at one, I use them to go to work. Although my bike's in the shop, I haven't ridden for about a month. But it's nice to be outside. It's good mental health, physical health. But eventually that trail is going to connect to Los Fresnos. And in the long run, there's a feasibility study on the Colorado Trails project to look at building a backcountry trail connecting Palo Alto to Bahia Grande unit of Laguna Atascosa, going along the drainage ditch, the evil drainage ditch, the Cameron County drainage ditch, out to the back way to Bahia Grande out there. That's cool. I mean, it's nice we have these trails. People, I don't know if y'all, how many of y'all from Brown, most of y'all from Harlem or not. Trails are great things. They're fun. They're a good asset for the community. Oh, yeah. That's cool. And what that's cool. Okay, so the bike trail in the city is called the Historic Battlefield Trail. It connects Palo Alto, Woonsocket, and Fort Brown through an alternate means of travel to get there on a hike bike trail. It's good. Luckily, I ride the northern part where there's a lot less traffic or crossing roads as you get closer down, but it's still a safe ride and a fun ride. And on Saturday mornings, we have the farmer market at the end at Linear Park down there. Sometimes I'll take a ride Saturday morning out there. Oh, rhetometry? I would, no. Actually, we planted rhetometries the first year and then we decided not because it came on their own. I would say Apollo Verde, which is a type of like very close to them. It's in that same family. Apollo Verdes are a little more manageable and easy than I think it's Parkinson's is the one that came in on their own. Like they both of them do. Both of them do. They're very similar with flowers and all that. But the true Palo Verde, which is not the Parkinson species, like I said, I'm not a botanist or that, so people can correct me. Or I'll look up the information. I'll give you my card. You can email me, and I'll look up that information and get it, the species name. And I know growers down there can go out. Yes, sir.
When you do burn both ways, all
I'm hoping for big. We haven't done our first one yet. I actually wrote a burn plan because nobody was helping me out. I wrote a burn plan last March. I got it and I gave it to the FMO up at Big Bend, who's our FMO, with the idea that the Fish and Wildlife Fire Crew are going to be burning here. But then all of a sudden, the FMO with Big Bend, oh, well, we're going to switch you off to Big Thicket. Come on, people, help me out. We need to burn. I want to burn. I need to burn this calendar year because I don't want to put any more herbicide out on the bottom and burn. So we would do a big landscape. It's only like 500 acres, and that's not that big for Fish and Wildlife. They said they could do that. They'll probably do it in 250 big chunk plots. The problem is where there's Spartina, it's going to burn good. Where there's other coastal forms, they're going to have issues. And where it doesn't carry, it doesn't carry.
We're a big area like that. Having a very negative impact on all the critters.
Wildlife, okay, it's a natural regime. Fire is naturally occurring. We thinking most animals, we don't know. There is a potential for it. We've studied this. We did an environmental assessment. Most of the lizards and reptiles, the mammals are going to be good. The birds are going to be good. We won't do it during nesting season, of course. So that's going to be good. The amphibians, reptiles might have the biggest charge. I think most of that. Tortoises, even if they're buried out there in there, should survive a fire. And we've seen some with fire. It's a natural regime. They should be able to survive. The native species should survive. I don't know about nilgai, but then again, we don't necessarily want nilgai in the park. But that's a very good question because anytime, like I said, trying to manage nature or control nature, there's so many unforeseen consequences that come out.
Historically, if you had 10,000 acres burn, there was another 10,000 acres right next door to it.
Yeah.
Different. Area that has storage.
Oh.
Now we don't have that. Our prairie patches are isolated.
Yeah, and that's okay. But that's why, okay, that's also why we're doing like in 250 acre blocks. So have that other block there and that park. And we burn one side of the park 1 year, but eventually get to like a cycle of every 5 years, and we won't burn the whole park all at once. But we have it in 250 acre block. But like I said, we haven't done it yet. It is learning. We're hoping we did the environmental assessment, trying to bring in all the experts to talk about it, and it was pretty much agreed that the native wildlife should survive fire, wildland fires out there. We aren't looking at burning brush. We're just looking at burning the prairie. Letting the brush go on the periphery of the marsh, grow wild for habitat for species. Which we do have, especially around the visitor centers. Great example of old growth thorn scrub right there. Just the diversity in there. For those of you, yeah, we'll come out there one day. You'll see it. It's magnificent. Well, I just saw an unmarked tortoise coming out of. We've been there as an old female. We've been doing surveys in that area, the little island of the front right by the VC, since 2008, since the very beginning, and we're still getting unmarked tortoises that are old, 12 years. And then of course that's where we see a lot of the babies. That's mainly because we're out there and they cross the roads. They're out there in the other good habitat, but we aren't out there that often. And then and when you're in the brush, I mean, you can walk by a tortoise, you can walk by a rattlesnake 10 foot, and if you don't get the right angle around the puncher or the vegetation, you won't see it. So it's Spartina spartanea, Gulf cordgrass, Spartina spartanea. Yes, there are a lot of things out there when you walk in the brush, not so much the grass. When you're in the trees, depending on what time of year and what the rain situation, they populate just as most things. After rain, they come out in pack. When we were in that drought, not so much, but the drought wasn't good for anything really. Yes, more so at Versailles de La Palma than at Palo Alto for some reason. They like that invasive grass there. And Fort Brown too. Fort Brown there's a golf course, abandoned golf course over there at the Riverview Golf Course it's been unmanaged for about 3 or 4 years. That has really tall grass sometimes. Man, you walk there, I guarantee you're getting a lot of change. Well, I know the time is running out, but I really appreciate everybody's patience and attention to this. Attention, I meant to say not patience, but I appreciate your patience.
All right, folks, we have a couple of things to go over. Which John? John?
You're right at it. Hey, I have a milestone that I need to award somebody who happens to be present here, Susan Upton. 250-hour pin, and she was just in the class of 2021. So she's just accumulating those hours. But congratulations. Thank you.
All right, folks, that will conclude our meeting for tonight. The library is about to kick us off. But thank you guys for joining, and for all the things that we're going through. This is the first hybrid session that we've done. And if anything, we're going to learn from this to make our following meetings a whole lot better. So thank you guys. Take care. Have a good night, and we'll see you next month.